Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. A little later today. I know I've been trying to stick to this morning schedule, but I had to leave the house rather early this morning to get to the million-person march on Parliament Hill. I've been talking about this for the last month or so, been talking about it all week. So how did it go? Well, when we come back, I'll let you know.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist.
Yes, please like this broadcast. Subscribe if you haven't. It's real. We're getting so close to 30,000. That's important. And somebody at the rally said today, you'd be at 100,000 if you weren't being suppressed by YouTube. All I could say was, yeah, probably true. But it was a very successful rally. And I must say, it has been a hard week for me because my mother is on the West Coast. She's not doing well. I had to move her out of a nursing home this week to a nearby hospital because the nursing home was incapable of providing intravenous fluids, and she wasn't eating. And I don't think they were trying too hard. So I had her moved to a nearby hospital. And the hospital at first said, no, we're not going to do IV. And I said, yes, you are. Damn it. Or I'm going to do something about it. Talk to the medical board. I'm not putting up with this. That's why I moved her there. Anyway, saner heads succeeded in getting assistance. And my mother is doing much better. I was in fervent prayer over the last 2 days that she would rouse out of this dementia-induced condition that she's in right now. And I spoke to a doctor today and a pastor who visited her at her bedside, and she said she was talking to them. I did a video call with my mom just the other night. She was unable to talk to me, barely recognized me, was unable to. And she was eating by herself on her own today. Hasn't done that. So I hate to bring this up, but it's been a hard week. And I discovered today at the million-person march, a lot of people were not able to be there because of family sickness. And I thought, this is interesting because I almost missed this event today myself because I thought maybe I should fly out to the lower mainland in British Columbia to see my mom. But I thought and prayed about it, and I really believe she's rebounding from the discussions I had today. So I only mention that because I've shared the difficult year I've had this year with losses in the family. And this is certainly not a great time. It never is, but it's not a great time to have to deal with this. And it's been a hard week, but I'm persevering. And somebody asked me today, what do you think your best quality is? And I said, persistence and perseverance, because I really do keep trying no matter what the adversities of life and no matter what I am presented that I have to deal with. I don't say challenges because I think of Justin Trudeau when I say that word now, and I never use that word. I think it's a weasel word. But let's get back to the news today. Million-person march. How well attended was it? In Ottawa, not as well as last year. And I'm not one of these people who inflates numbers. Maximum 1,000 people there, 750 to 1,000. The crowd peaked, was not there in the morning, started to dissipate after the march, but it was an effective crowd. And the counter protest really said as much of the story as the protest itself. Maybe 25 people out there early in the morning. Well, about 10-ish, 10 o'clock a.m. They were there. By the time we left on the march afternoon, maybe about 1 o'clock, four counter protesters remaining. What a sad looking bunch, many. So that's how that went. But it was a completely marvelous day for the passion, the enthusiasm, and as organizer Kamel El-Cheikh. He is the guy who started the Hands Off Our Kids organization that's behind all this. This guy works tirelessly to make this happen. It's not just in Ottawa. 38 Canadian cities hosted a million-person march today. I haven't got all the statistics. I'm going out again tonight to a dinner hosted by Kamel to find out how other cities across Canada fared. These are difficult times. And a lot of people wonder, is it worth going out? I think a lot of people are demoralized at the news that the non-confidence motion next week is probably bound to fail because the treasonous Bloc Party has already said it's going with Trudeau, and the NDP probably will too. So, but don't think Poilievre and the Conservatives have the votes to overturn, to cause a non-confidence motion to pass. Well, obviously they don't if these two other opposition parties are not going to vote with them. So I'm not going to get into that, but I will get into this wonderful million-person march today. I've been stretching a bit so we can boost the numbers up here at the beginning, because I find if I go too fast at the beginning, the numbers get stagnant. So I'm encouraging people to tune in. Tell your friends and family about this broadcast. And, tell them that our store is open for business. We've got some great T-shirts. I actually saw some people wearing some great T-shirts today at the march. And I encourage you, do what you need to do to advertise your position in life. Do what you need to do in order to resolve to resist the Trudeau government, because it doesn't look like it's going to come down next week. And I think a lot of us who know it's urgent to get rid of the Liberal government because of Bill C-63, just to name one. We need to get rid of that carbon tax as well. But even more important than the carbon tax, our freedom of speech is more important. And if C-63 passes in this fall session or in the next spring session, we are in grave difficulty, because I understand the Conservative Party is putting together a imitation bill, a facsimile that's not quite as harsh. I don't know. I haven't seen the details, but I'm worried. We don't need a replacement bill. We need to kill the bill. And I'm concerned that Michelle Rempel-Garner has reportedly, been placed in charge of this replacement bill for C-63. This is nonsense. Get rid of this bill. Tired of governments languishing, or allowing us to languish as they get their fingers into our lives. You remember what Pierre Poilievre said last Christmas at a interview he did? He said, "Let me head a government that is a mind your own business government." That's what today was all about. Let's have a look at some of the footage we have here, because I was there from beginning to end, and it was exciting. Here's Dr. Ann Gillies. This woman is just a fount of common sense. And if you saw the interview I did with Ann last Sunday, you'll know why I say that. In fact, she says, common sense has become a swear word to the woke ideologues and the woke politicians in this world. Just listen to Ann here.
Of our society. If we erode, if we allow the very foundation of our families to be destroyed, that will threaten everything in our society. It is the bedrock of our society. We have to encourage families, and we need to step out and stand up for young people, to encourage them to have children and not listen to the rhetoric that somehow children are awful and they're going to, it's going to make climate change, horrible if we have children, and all the rhetoric that goes with that. I'm not going to get into that. Queer theory and gender ideology pose a threat to our freedoms in Canada, particularly the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. And it includes the mandate of using specific language. Remember Jordan Peterson in 2016 stood before Parliament and cautioned parliamentarians on what we would call the trans pronoun bill. Well, look what's happened, folks. He was absolutely right.
Yeah, he was absolutely right. And this is original footage, folks. Took it myself. These aren't somebody else's clips, and they're not 2-year-old clips of Justin Trudeau being shouted down by protesters someplace, which it's far too much of on the internet today. That's all you can do is show ancient clips of Justin Trudeau being booed. Get a job, or at least try to be a journalist. And here's some more great stuff. This is Greg Wycliffe, who's from Toronto. Camille kept telling me this guy's a comedian, so I was expecting a stand-up comedian to come up. Well, he's a bit of he's a humorous guy, but no, I would not say he's a comedian. He's a political commentator like myself, but I'm interested because he's very, very concerned about Bill C-63 as well. So he was one of the speakers today. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Yeah, guys, it takes a lot of courage to stand up here today for all you to come out, and it really shouldn't. It's literally at the point where 2 + 2 = 5. If you disagree with that, you're going to get attacked. And I started this website, savefreespeech.ca, because they're trying to pass this egregious bill, Bill C-63. I have business cards with me. If you want to learn more, you can go to the website. But we recently published a video called Canada's War on Parents. It's not just school teachers.
I gotta say before I forget, the guy in the right-hand side of the screen here holding up the signs, he makes all those himself, and he spoke today as well. It's Howard Kwan. You know him if you had anything to do with the Freedom Convoy, if you reported on it as I did, or you participated, or you actively protested. You know Howard Kwan. He's become a institution in Ottawa because he attends all of these rallies, brings his signs, and hands them out freely to the folks who are there. So I just wanted to give that little tidbit to Howard, who was there today, and always has the event.
It's politicians. It's the media. It's CSIS, which is our CIA, our Canadian intelligence services. They're so intelligent that anybody who thinks there's just a man and a woman is considered a violent extremist. Again, how do I make a joke about this when it's already so patently absurd?
Yeah, and that's what he's saying here is dead on. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, as he says, that is Canada's CIA. They are actively surveying people they consider to be domestic terrorists, and those are pro-life activists and people who are opposed to the LGBTQ agenda and gender ideology. They consider those Canadians to be the dangerous ones. I hang out with these people when I go to these events. I was the master of ceremonies at this event today. I don't see any dangerous people there. Nobody was armed. Nobody was threatening. Nobody was even swearing at the meager lot of protesters. There were 4 of them left, by the way, by the time we started the march. 4 of them. And they were very aggressive, and they were saying some very hostile things to our parents and our people. And I have to tell you, I'm a parent too. And somebody in my close family was affected by gender ideology. And I have a personal stake in this. It's not just politics to me. It's not just philosophy or ideology to me. It's very personal. And this is why, as a journalist, I have become very involved in this subject. We have enough journalists out there working for CBC and CTV and the Toronto Star who are actively pushing and promoting gender ideology and celebrating the sickness. And I think we need to have more journalists telling the other side of the story, which I consider to be the truth, the objective truth. So I hope you do too. So here's some more fun and games here. This is one of my heroes from the COVID pandemic. This is a pastor who said no to COVID mandates. This is a pastor who said, I'll keep my church open. Thank you very much. I'll speak at lockdown events, and I don't care if the government comes down on my head. And they did. And they did. He's got a whack of fines for opposing COVID mandates. This is Pastor Henry Hildebrandt of the Church of God in Aylmer, Quebec. What a guy.
I am absolutely and strongly standing against what they're doing to our country, how they're mocking God, how they're poking God in the eyes, so to speak. I am adamantly against it. But I do not have a hatred for anyone. But I do hate Satan, and I do hate what Satan does, and I do hate the deeds of what these people are doing. A big difference. So, let me see, I lost my place. I got a little passionate here. Okay, but it cannot be justly labeled as such simply because someone holds to and promotes a contrary position. If we just readily assume all dissenting speech is hate speech, then we cannot have a conversation about the viewpoints which we hold, and we cannot have a conversation. If we cannot have a conversation, no understanding can be reached, neither can any mutual peaceful conclusion be drawn. So you saw exactly that. They are yelling at us. They're yelling, you hate this, and they're yelling, they're talking about human rights, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But there is no constructive conversation going on, letting them know, look, we don't hate you. We just don't want you to destroy our children. We don't want you to tear the very fabric that holds our society together, right? We need to have a constructive conversation. But unfortunately, it starts way higher than with them. Right behind me here, that is where it's actually going on. Okay, there's unrighteousness, there's unholiness going on and endorsed and propagated. That is the problem, that we at the very highest seat, that we don't have someone that stands up for our children. Actually, they do not stand up for our children. That is the problem. Now let me tell you again, don't worry about how many people are here in numbers. We are like David and Goliath. And let me ask you, do you remember who won the day? Was it David or was it Goliath? We know who won. And you know what? We know who wins. We've already read the last page of the book. We already know who wins. God is on his throne. God is in control.
Amen. I don't know how many times over the years I've said that same phrase. I've come to the end of the book, meaning the Bible, and we win. God wins. I've read the end. I've read the finish. God wins. So let's stop worrying about the fate of this world. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's very difficult to just say, I'll put things in God's hands. I'll just there. A little technical glitch, just about lost my sound. Strange things are happening on the internet and on YouTube. And we're back again. As I was saying, I'm the last one to just sit back and say, well, I don't care how it all turns out. I'm just going to watch and wait. I fight because I think we are told we're in a race. We have to finish that race. We have to fight the good fight until our last breath. And I'll keep doing that. Just like I'm going to keep giving you, I think, the news that you want to hear, you want to know. I think that's important. But this was a very big event today because this is the second annual. And as Kamel El-Cheikh told me again today, this is not a marathon. This is a marathon, not a sprint. That's the difference. And this is not a one-shot deal. This is an annual event. And it is succeeded by what happens in June, the My Child June protest, to ensure that children are not forced to participate in these pride flag raising ceremonies at schools across the country. And Kamel was tremendously successful with that campaign last June. Just look at the pride parades across Canada. Many people stayed home and said, I'm sick of watching a bunch of middle-aged men walk around nude doing obscene things in front of kids. A lot of people just said, forget it, not going there, not doing it anymore. And that's in a large part because people are saying no. We're pushing back. Hands off our kids. Stop telling me what to do. And I saw a couple of people with signs suggesting we were trying to take their rights away as trans people. I'm not trying to take your rights away. You're equal under the law, under the Charter of Rights. And that's the way it should be. Everybody should have equality, not special rights. So don't say I'm taking your rights away by saying, butt out of my family, butt out of our classrooms. Stop shoving political ideology down the throats of young boys and girls. Stop politicizing and sexualizing kids. Let children be children. Let kids be kids. What is so hard about this to understand? Why can't these people get it? Well, I'm going to play you a quick interview here. Well, actually, where are we? Yeah. This is Jack Fonseca, he is the political operations officer at Campaign Life Coalition. He's also very involved in LifeSite News. I've submitted pieces in the past to LifeSite, usually when nobody else wants to run them because they're too controversial. But I met Jack for the first time today. I've spoken to him on the phone in the past, and we've emailed back and forth. But wonderful guy, and I take my hats off to Campaign Life Coalition. Great bunch of people. I always say that Roman Catholics are doing more for pro-life than Protestants, as I am, or evangelical Christians, as I am. They do a great job in that. And other faiths and other mainstream and evangelical Protestants should be getting out and doing more to save the lives of the unborn.
For children in Ottawa, and I've got Jack Vanescu of the Campaign Life, and Dr. Ann Gillies, author of several books, including Opening the Floodgates, which I just talked to Dr. Gillies on the weekend about her work, but here we are again. Beautiful sunny day here. Start with you, Dr. Gillies. What brings you here for the second annual March for Children?
The children, protecting our children from false and irrational ideologies and the sexualization of children that's happening in our education system, and the LGBTQ extremists, activists who are pushing an agenda that is damaging the lives of our children, both physically, if they decide to transition, as it's called, but also mentally. We are creating the greatest mental health crisis in Canada that we've ever seen. Now, part of that, their cell phones can be attributed to that too, but mentally confusing our children about their sex, their biological sex, and confusing them with the ideas that...
I'm just going to speed up here until we get to Jack.
Realizing what the heck's happening in my child's class. They're not learning reading, writing, and arithmetic. They are learning gender ideology. They're learning about the homosexual lifestyle. They're learning about all this sexual stuff, and it's happening all day long. It's happening in every grade. It's happening in every subject. It's happening in the school assemblies, and it needs to stop. I didn't put my kid in school in order to receive ideological sexual indoctrination. I put them there to learn academically. So it's a growing movement. More and more are resisting and seeing the LGBT pride flag for what it is, a symbol of domination and conquest over our parental rights.
Very accurate statement, Jack. And I've said the same thing many times. It's a divisive symbol, and it just keeps getting more confusing every year, the more layers they add to this flag. Let's stop dividing Canadians. Isn't that a novel idea? Let's stop sexualizing children, and let's stop insisting we get all indoctrinated into this queer philosophy and all of this thinking. You do what you want with your life, okay? Do what you will. You're free to live your life in this country. Well, at least you are right now. You might not be for much longer. But that's the kind of freedom we enjoy. If you don't break the law, you don't infringe on other people's rights, you can believe what you want. You want to believe this nonsense about. You want to believe it, go ahead. But don't force it down my throat, and don't force it down the throats of our children in school. And I think Jack is saying something very accurate here.
And it's important that we support these kinds of parental rights events to continue pushing back.
Now, were there average people here? You betcha, and I want to show this to you.
So we're with a couple of participants today at the million-person March for Children. If you feel comfortable with giving your names, please do. If you don't, that's okay. Can you both tell me what brings you here today for this march?
Sure. So we had a child who was in the OCDSB in junior kindergarten
in Ottawa.
Yeah, and what we found was that they were introducing gender identity in kindergarten when the curriculum, the Ontario curriculum, explicitly says grade 8. So there's this big difference between a child in grade 8 versus in kindergarten. So the question you have to ask is, why are they introducing gender identity in kindergarten instead of grade 8, like what the curriculum says?
And we also met with our son's teacher and the principal. Prior to that, I emailed the teacher 4 times asking her when she would let us know when they would be teaching him about gender identity and pride. So she ignored all my emails, and then when we met with her, I asked her why, and she said it would be discrimination if she let us know. So in the end, we tried with the Catholic school board, but they are the same. They refused to tell us what books they read to kids, and we ended up going with a private school.
Well, thank you for coming out today. And here's the mark.
The people united!
Some shots of the mark.
Hands off our kids! 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 The people united will never be defeated!
The people united
will never be defeated!
The people united will never be defeated!
The people united will never be defeated!
It's not even had at all on TV, which is, hey, what we're...
Our kids! Hands off our kids! Ladies and gentlemen, we are...
So that gives you an idea of the kind of cross-section we had there today. You know, people of different colors, 2 genders, lots of different religions present. Unity, very much there. Successful day, you bet. You're going to see any of this on the mainstream media tonight or tomorrow or over the weekend? No, you'll see some of the counter protests, which they'll claim, the mainstream media will claim, were much bigger than this protest, or the ones that occurred in Toronto and Vancouver and other Canadian cities across Canada. They'll say the counter protests were much larger, much more significant. And these people protesting gender ideology, well, must be something wrong with them, must not really have their heads together. That's the kind of reporting you're going to see throughout the weekend on this march, if they report about it at all. But you know what? This government, this Trudeau government, wants to divide Canadians by race, by gender, by ethnicity, by religion, because it keeps them in power. When we are fighting over things like foreign wars and other issues, instead of uniting about getting this crap out of our classrooms, the Liberal Party wins every time because they succeed in division. I tell you who wins in unity. Common sense, average Canadians win every time. And the Trudeau government loses every time. So that's my little message for you today. Fantastic event. This was my reporting today. I will be back again tomorrow with more of the news you need to know. And remember this, today was about resolving to resist. What can you do in your neighborhood, in your backyard, to continue to resolve to resist the authoritarian dictatorship of the Liberal government and other governments across Canada, and to restore true democracy to Canada? Think about that tonight. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Have a great Friday night and a marvelous weekend. And I'll be back with you very soon.